The drama around the Super Mario Galaxy movie is definitely interesting to a certain degree. On the one hand, it seems to be making millions of dollars and a lot of people are going to see it. But on the other hand, critics say that as a movie, it kinda sucks. And as somebody who's played the Super Mario Bros. Games since the NES, the Game Boy, and yes, even the Virtual Boy, I thought you guys would like and appreciate my perspective of the movie and what it did and did not do for me personally as a fan. Before we go any further, I just want to say that there will be discussions of spoilers throughout this whole video because I'm not holding anything back. So, if you don't want to be spoiled because you haven't seen the movie yet, then pick the nearest door and get out of here. Here's your final countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last chance to get out of here. 0. Alright, time's up. Let's discuss it. Alright, first things first, let's establish who the main character of the Super Mario Galaxy movie is. It's Princess Peach. Now, Peach being the focus of this movie is not in and of itself a problem, but it does kind of leave Mario and Luigi with not a whole lot to do. This is kind of a continuation of an issue I had with the first Mario Bros. Movie, where Mario struggles to get the training course and then later Peach lets him know that she was able to master it right off the bat. It seems like this scene is suggesting that Peach is able to better handle herself in combat than even Mario is, which, in my opinion, hurts Mario's role as one of the Mushroom Kingdom's top defenders in the story. If Peach can mostly stand up in a fight against Bowser all by herself, then why are Mario and Luigi there? Now that being said, Peach's combat skills do make her a perfect choice as the film's protagonist, and she fills that role pretty well in my opinion. Now, I actually think I enjoyed Peach more in this movie than in the last one because there was no needless gloating over the fact that she was better at the obstacle course than Mario, or like that scene where the Toads ask her who Mario is when they've never seen him before and she just goes, "He's nobody!" My main issue here is with the character choices. Like, why does Peach go off on her own? Yes, she's got Toad, but she decides to leave both Mario and Luigi at the castle to run things while she's gone. Why not send them to go and rescue Rosalina? For all her strength, she's still the princess of the Mushroom Kingdom, and she's already seen Mario and Luigi team up to take down Bowser, so surely she could trust them with going and rescuing another princess. Oh, and let's just go ahead and get this little nugget out of the way. In the first film, we were told that Peach does not know her origin story. Well, we get it in this one. Peach and Rosalina are long-lost sisters. Now, do I hate this, or do I like this? To be honest, I don't really know how to feel about it because I don't really care that much. This was never established in the games. I mean, the closest thing to any sort of connection between these two characters is that they look kinda similar. So it doesn't not make sense, but we're also talking about a character that originally appeared in a game almost 20 years ago and hasn't had any further fleshing out since then. For me, I really don't care that much, but if Peach and Rosalina weren't sisters, then I think they would have a harder time justifying putting most of the focus on Peach in this movie. This big galactic family reunion makes things feel a little bit more personally involved for Peach, and therefore I think makes it a little more understandable why the Mario brothers got sidelined babysitting Bowser. Speaking of which, let's move on now to discuss what goes on with the brothers and the Bowser. A whole lot of time wasting. Now I say that, but the misadventures of Mario and Luigi are fairly entertaining, even if they don't really amount to much overall. It helps that the animation in this movie is godlike, with the music right behind it, which seems to be the one thing that everybody who's watched this film can agree upon. Let me run you through the quick version. Bowser is tiny at the beginning of this movie because that's what they decided to punish him with at the end of the first one. The Koopa King seems to be trying to rehabilitate himself, something that Luigi supports, but Mario is much more skeptical of. At a later point, Mario accidentally unshrinks Bowser and returns him to his original size, in which we all expect him to turn on the Mario brothers because he's evil. But he doesn't. In fact, Bowser actually offers to stay in the captivity of the Bee Queen so that they can go on and catch up with Princess Peach, a completely selfless gesture. Now, even into this point, I was still convinced that this was all just an elaborate plan by Bowser to get the Marios to lower their guards so that he could take advantage of their trust later. But later, during one of the fight scenes, when Bowser Jr. decides he's going to actually destroy Mario and all of his friends, Bowser tells him not to, saying that he spent some time with the Mario brothers and his friends, and they're not so bad. Now, Bowser Jr. loves his dad, and he doesn't want to do anything to upset him, so instead of killing the Mario Brothers, he just turns them into babies and sends them onto some random planet elsewhere. So, it would appear that I was wrong. Bowser's rehabilitation was actually successful, and now he does sort of like Mario and Luigi. But we're not done there. After Bowser Jr. shows off all of the work he's done to make his dad proud and build his dream Boomsday device, which will allow him to destroy any planet they want across the galaxy, Bowser decides that redemption isn't for him, and he becomes enemies with Mario and Luigi once again. Now, this really frustrates me because at the beginning of the movie, I didn't trust that Bowser was honestly trying to rehabilitate, but then we see that he actually did come to develop a sort of respect for Mario and Luigi to the point that he told Bowser Jr. to spare their lives. So this movie starts us off with a Bowser who's still evil but feigning redemption, to actual redemption for this character, to him just going to being a villain at the end of it once all is said and done, and it just feels like such a waste. If he's just going to go back to being a villain, then why waste the time redeeming him? And I feel like what makes this even worse is that I think the movie does a pretty good job of making people want to cheer for Bowser and Bowser Jr. to have a nice, loving relationship. Bowser might be a tyrant that would destroy any world at the drop of a hat and not think twice about it, and his son's right there with him. But scenes like the flashback to Bowser Jr.'s early childhood, where Bowser's putting on this little puppet show explaining how one day they're going to take over the universe together, it really does feel like a genuine, endearing moment for those two characters, even though they're evil. It gives you this much of a sense that somewhere deep down in Bowser and Bowser Jr., there is a little bit of goodness. Now, at the end of the movie, they sort of try to leave the window open for something like that to happen again in a later film, because when it looks like Bowser Jr. has been taken down by one of his own attacks, Mario actually jumps in and decides to save him. There's no big thank you moment at the end where the Bowsers thank Mario for saving one of them. They just sort of celebrate to themselves. I just feel like they could have cut the whole Bowser redemption plot point by just having it be a lie to begin with. That way, maybe at the end of the movie, you could have Bowser actually thank Mario for saving Bowser Jr., and then agreeing that they would settle their score another day. Now, before we get into some of the lesser characters, I do want to go back to Rosalina for just a minute, because she's almost not in this film at all. And I do think that it's ironic that, considering all of the other Nintendo princesses who've been kidnapped, Rosalina never was. But for some reason they decided that no matter how powerful she actually is, and she's quite powerful indeed, she was the one who was gonna have to be rescued at the end of the day. Not only that, but whenever she and Peach actually touch hands, they can unleash the greatest power in the entire universe, which just, in my opinion, further diminishes the role of the Mario Brothers in this entire kingdom setup. But let's move on to a character that I actually thought was pretty fun, Yoshi, who is pretty accurate to how he is in the games. The only real critique I have of Yoshi is that he becomes Mario and Luigi's friend almost instantly with no sort of issues whatsoever. The only person who actually has a problem with Yoshi is Toad, and that gets resolved off screen and they just are all of a sudden good with each other. Kind of similar to how Mario and Donkey Kong got over whatever was going on between them in the first movie. Here's a fun throwback. Ward actually appears in this movie along with all of his old boss cronies. Considering that his main appearances are Super Mario Bros. 2 and Link's Awakening, and then the remake of Super Mario Bros. 2 and the remake of Link's Awakening, it was actually pretty nice to see all of these characters on the big screen. They're mostly just cameos, but that's basically what this entire movie is all about, to be honest. Now, there was one character that we all assumed was going to be a cameo, but he actually turned out to be a bigger part of the movie than anyone could have thought. It's Fox McCloud. Now, of course, official posters for this film spoiled this right away, but can you imagine what people's reactions would have been like if Nintendo had not just gone ahead and announced that Fox was going to appear in this movie, and then to have him show up doing everything he did the way he did? Fox wasn't just a small little role where he showed up and then left. No, he helped Peach, Mario, and Luigi actually get to the Bowser planet for the final battle. This feels like a massive fumble on Nintendo's part for ruining something that could have been a very enjoyable surprise for a lot of people. This actually kind of reminds me of when Toei Animation decided to just go ahead and spoil that Gogeta was going to appear at the end of the Dragon Ball Super Broly film. There was no reason to spoil that. In movies like these, where fan service is such a big part of the appeal, why not hold on to that element of surprise? I actually think they handled Fox pretty well in this film. He was very enjoyable on screen. Though I do think that the only reason we had him in here was because we're probably going to get a new Star Fox game at some point, and I suspect that they're already laying the groundwork for a Super Smash Bros. Movie. Why do I say that? Well, if you just go over all of the different cameo appearances from Fox to Mr. Game & Watch, Donkey Kong was even in there for a brief second, and of course Miyamoto had to throw in the Pikmin, there's a lot of Super Smash Bros. Elements coming together already. Not only that, but the stellar animation lends itself to some pretty impressive fight choreography, which you know they're just itching to turn up to 11. Now maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that Nintendo wants to do a Smash movie. It's not a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when. Could be 5 years, could be 10 years, could be 15 years, don't know, but mark my words, we will see a Super Smash Bros. Movie. So with all that said, what are my final thoughts on the Super Mario Galaxy movie? I think it's a fun movie if you really love Mario, but if you're going for a well-written story or well-developed characters, you're not going to find that here. Like I said before, this is basically a Mario fan service movie and not much else, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, but I don't think that that makes the movie good either. And I don't understand why this has become such a controversial thing to say. It's perfectly acceptable to like things that aren't necessarily well written. Case in point, we can just go back to Dragon Ball again. There are inconsistencies all over that manga. Think of how popular Cell is as a villain, along with the entirety of the Android saga, despite the fact that Cell's survival of self-destruction is complete garbage. We all know what he said. It was the nucleus in his head that was the one part of him that survived and allowed him to regenerate, even though, in his previous fight with Goku, his entire upper torso was blown to smithereens. It's an enormous plot hole in the build-up to the arc's climax, and yet people enjoy it anyway. Why? Because they can. If you've played video games at any point in your life, you've probably enjoyed a game that most people thought was really bad. But trust me, it's okay to like things that suck. Not every piece of media you consume is going to be high art. No, sometimes you can just like things because they're dumb fun. And that's exactly what the Mario Galaxy movie is. A lot of dumb fun. There's nothing wrong with enjoying this movie. I certainly did. And I think that actually going and seeing it in theaters made me enjoy it a little bit more than I would have otherwise. In short, the plot's kind of a mess, but if you really like Mario, you're gonna have a good time. But what do you guys think? How did you feel about the Super Mario Galaxy movie? Did you enjoy all of the callbacks and references and cameos? Or did the messiness of the plot weigh it down too much for you to get really anything positive out of? Thanks for watching this video, I really appreciate it. If you want to support my channel, then be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Now, we should probably check on all of the Rosalina and Peach shippers, because if anybody hated this movie, it was definitely them.